welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsors today, there are a few. This is clearly the place to be. Nordstella, Udacity, Aura Frames, and Ruler. More about those later. And I'm joined by Wes Hilliard, who frankly has come to accept that I will always have questions for him that are just my own personal nosiness, such as today, when I'll tell you I really want to know about the Hydrate Spark Pro 2 smart water bottle, which I already have, but he has reviewed, and we're going to come to that later. But for now, Wes, I'm assuming, we're both fully hydrated or whatever, but I think you are also extraordinarily excited by Apple's Music Artist of the Year. Am I right?
I wouldn't say super excited. I'm aware of Tyler, the Creator. I've definitely heard his music. It's actually funny. It's just outside of my wheelhouse enough that I didn't go out of my way to listen to him, but it started to come into my recommendation algorithm and my playlists. Very notable album artwork and sound. So I started to notice him more over the past year and have saved a few of his songs to my library. So I actually really enjoy. I think one's called Darling I. That one's very fun. Definitely has a classic sound. A lot of his music sounds like the rap and R&B music that I grew up hearing. So just a fun throwback artist, and I think well deserving of the Artist of the Year.
Unless for a year this has been slipping into your playlists. You think Apple has been seeding this in some great conspiracy? Wait, no. You said the other week, actually, that if you listen, you don't tend to listen to the same music over and over. And you talked about there's the favourites playlist and there's the heavy rotation playlist. And I've noticed since you've said that, my heavy rotation playlist seems to be flooded with things I've never heard of before. And there's one particular album that I have heard before that I do like, but the one track from it that I do play a lot never comes up in heavy rotation. So I think they've got an intern working on this at the moment. But
yeah, heavy rotation, I think, is purely algorithmic, and it tries its best, I think, to avoid being too repetitive, but at the same time, it knows, I listened to the entire, I mentioned the artist before, and I never know if I'm saying it right, Laufey album, and it included 5 of the songs in my, on, what is that called again? The on repeat playlist, whatever. It just flooded that playlist. So it's interesting how it's making those decisions, but it does go out of its way to try and include some variety. So I think it avoids trying to do that kind. I'm still frustrated with Apple Music, and I will always be, for not letting me turn off specific genres or say, please let me listen to this video game music album and never have it recommended to me, because I want to listen to it, but when I'm listening to New Music Daily or New Music Mix or my personal radio station, I don't want to go from Logic to Gorillaz to Jazz Zelda, right? It's never where it should be. If Apple Music's algorithm was smart enough to fit those chip tunes, jazz renditions of things that I like listening to in between songs and fade them properly, that would be killer. That would be fun, but it doesn't. It's very jarring every single time. Here's this hardcore crazy music. Here's Linkin Park. And then suddenly Zelda's Lullaby from Nintendo 64. And it never fits.
I still remember Big Finish. I used to write Doctor Who for Big Finish. There was one story there someone else wrote, and I was thinking, this is fantastic. And I slowly realised that iTunes, as it was playing it on shuffle. So I was getting the whole story, 30 tracks worth, in totally the wrong order. But because it was Doctor Who, it was all about time, it worked. It was absolutely fantastic.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Here's a question as we move on to our next topic, because we have a bigger one in Apple's media space. Yeah. But books or movies, even, do you recommend people? Is it a permanent recommendation, or do you shift it per series on whether they should read something chronologically or in the order of release?
A very, very long time ago, a friend of mine dramatised a novel by Reginald Hill in the D. L. and Pascoe series of crime novels. And because of that, I read his version, the book, I saw his, read the book first, and learnt then that it was something like halfway through the series at that time, 6 of what was 12 or so. And after that, I read the 7th, and I read the 5th, and I read the 4th, and I read the 8th. And as I got nearer the start of the series, I started to think the books were rubbish at the start. And then much later on, they went on to somewhere around 20. By the end, they were really poor there as well. But this core bit in the middle was absolutely superb. There's one called The Wood Beyond, which was just amazing. And then after that, nah. So I don't think you have to start at the beginning. And once in a while, you really shouldn't. Although I think I said to you just the other week about the Wheel of Time, picked it up, saw book 7 of 12 and put it back down again because I couldn't face all of that.
Right.
Are you stricter about this? Will you always go in with number 1 but warn people it gets better later?
I am a fan of chronological order. So I actually introduced my wife, Natalie, to Star Wars chronologically. We started with episode 1. Right. I also read I had already read books in this series, the Dragon Riders of Pern. I had read portions of that series because it takes place over 2,000 years. But I had picked sections that are pretty much release order. Like she had written Dragon Song first, so I had read that originally, of course. But then later I realized there was 24 books, but I was like, I don't want to just read these in release order. I want to read them chronologically. So this was on deployment too, so I had plenty of time on my hands. So I figured out the chronology of every single book and every short story, put them in an Apple Note, which I still have to this day, and went through and read every single book in chronological order. And it was a lot of fun. It was definitely interesting because it was not written to be read that way at all. But starting from year 0 and then getting to year 1000 and reading about myths and legends as they spoke of them as if, they didn't happen or they happened in a different way because of them not being able to keep good histories at this point in their story. But being able to reference that myself, having read that already, even though she hadn't written them yet, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
And yet, having shown Natalie Star Wars Episode 1, you're still married. That's
right.
For several weeks now. I mean, I'm impressed. I can tell you, I was writing for the BBC when that came out, The Phantom Menace, and I and my editor went to the big London premiere of it, and we walked out going, yeah, right. So what else have we got to do today? Totally flat for it.
I would say sometimes chronological is fine. It works. Like Marvel, obviously it was made to be chronological. The dates of the movies match up with the day they occur in the universe, at least up until Endgame, and then it all gets broken because of time travel. But lots of fun stuff there. I think it really just depends on the series, but some things do have to be watched in release order just because of how the story is told.
Solely because you just said this about Marvel. In the last Mission Impossible film, a big deal is made out of a certain date. It's actually too much of a big deal and it doesn't really work in the story. But yeah, it turns out that date is the release date of the first Mission Impossible film. So yeah, great if you get it. But still, anyway, sorry, we could go on like this, and maybe we even will in Apple Insider Plus, because this week it's also about media. Although actually, this one, once again, this is your idea for a very good reason. What's this week's Apple Insider Plus about, please?
So we did this a year ago in August, podcast we listened to, and I could have went back and listened, but I already know it's changed, and I listen to so many that I know I might have one repeat in my list, but yeah, I have a bunch of shows to recommend, shows that I've been listening to, all mostly new and pretty fun, diverse shows from tech to video games to just news on the internet. So if you want to hear about our podcast recommendations, what we're listening to, what we're enjoying, then you can listen in the Apple Insider Plus portion.
And in that, you can find out which podcast I listen to has just decided to end. Not 1 week ago, you mentioned podcasts are falling off, coming to an end just as you do it. And None.
I was going to mention that because I listened to it as well.
Yeah.
But you'll have to hear about what that mystery podcast is in the after show, because the reason this came up is because Apple dumped its top podcast charts on us for the year, and I realized yet again I don't listen to any of these shows, and I honestly don't know anyone in my life that does.
No. There's a nice segment in Only Murders in the Building when they're not in the top 10, and so they don't exist for these things. But that's now a television recommendation. Let me just say, before it goes out of my head, AppleInsider Plus, it's the ad-free, extended version of the podcast, which you can, of course, hear by subscribing either through Apple Podcast subscriptions or Patreon. Details in the show notes, as always. And equally as always, it would be good to have your company there on Apple Insider Plus. But now, just briefly about those top podcast charts. All I know is that Joe Rogan beat The Daily to it, and I don't listen to either of them. So should I be listening to either of them?
The Daily is New York Times.
Right.
Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan. So I had some thoughts about this, and we don't have to get into it. It's not necessarily political. It's just mostly the reason why certain things get so popular, right? Why is Fox News the number one watched channel on Earth, right? And why is Joe Rogan the number one podcast in Apple Podcasts? And it's simple. It's when you tackle such a specific niche, and that's what both of those tackle, is a very specific niche, a minority population of the United States. They are hungry for validation, and they will chase that validation. And that goes for The Daily, Call Her Daddy, and other shows, Ezra Klein. Those niches are huge, right? It kind of contradicts itself, but it's still a niche because it is not the entire United States. It's not in any way a majority idea. It's just these are very popular niches, and again, contradicting myself here, but you understand what I'm saying. So because of that locked in popularity and the fact that podcasts are free and easy to access, I think it makes them easily rise to the top, because we're talking about millions of listeners, but also most YouTube channels easily outpace podcast listenership, period. Like YouTube is tens of millions, hundreds of millions of listeners, and I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan is in the millions range. I can't remember what it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have 100 million listeners or something crazy. Someone will tell me. But and that's an exception to the rule. But for the most part, podcasts are not measured in the millions. So it's interesting seeing how something like that medium can bridge to podcasts. It was another discussion I had on social media recently of people saying, well, why use this streaming platform on AT Proto, right? If you go to the app, it's Streamplace, stream.place. If you go to that website, 4 people are using it. And I'm like, well, it's not always about popularity. I feel like the internet has made a mistake in telling all of us that we can one day be famous. Therefore, we have to participate on the most popular platforms in order to become famous. I think that's silly, right? If you already have some followers and you want to stream, tell them to go to stream.place and they'll watch you. It doesn't have to be the most popular thing on earth. You don't have to go to Twitch, right? Just because Twitch is the most popular. So I think podcasts being what it is because these already massive followerships, right? People subscribe to the New York Times. People are interested in what Joe Rogan has to say. They're being told, well, we're saying it on Apple Podcasts, so they go to Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
That makes sense. I should say, pick up on your niche point there. There's going to be a small change to Apple Insider Plus, and actually to the main show, Apple Insider as well. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to be concentrating exclusively on the color of batteries in the iPhone 17. That's going to be, that's our niche, and we'll see how it goes. You don't sound convinced.
So as far as podcasts go, I keep an eye on Apple Insider. I don't really care that much, but every now and then I like to see where we are in the charts. And we usually break top 50 in tech charts. We're competing with some pretty heavy hitters in the space. And again, tech charts are anomalous because a lot of times everything podcast will break into the tech charts somehow. So it pushes things around quite a bit. We've ranked pretty well in the past in Apple Podcasts, and of course, that's usually thanks to you guys listening and, of course, leaving good reviews. So as long as you keep doing that, we can continue ranking and attracting more listeners. But again, I don't really make the show to be a ranked show, so to speak. I make the show because I like informing our listeners, and I like the listener base that we have. And if we just so happen to rank somewhere and do well enough to attract new listeners, that's great. I'm always happy to bring on more people. But at the same time, it's not the goal of the show. This is a companion to Apple Insider, our website. This is a place where you get to hang out with us, and that's why we put a little bit of ourselves in the show, right? This isn't a welcome to the news of the day. This is Apple's stock price. Like, that's not what we're doing. And these top podcasts, they have several categories: top series, top shows, top episodes. I literally would never listen to any of these shows, period. They're not, and not even it's not even that they're not in my wheelhouse. They're just not interesting to me, right? Joe Rogan will never have anything interesting to say to me. The daily podcast from New York Times, I have no interest in that whatsoever. But I do have a daily news show that I listen to, and that's Apple News Today. And it's great. It's succinct. It tells me what I need to know, and it does it does a good job of being impartial and just saying, here's what's happening in the world. And I very much enjoy that.
I sometimes get that from BBC News. If you ask your HomePod, if you say, hey, let's say Iris. If you say, Iris, play me the news, you can have a 2 or 3 minute radio bulletin from BBC, and I like it. I also like what you said there about not chasing ratings, that we're doing this to do what we do, because that's exactly how I work with my much smaller YouTube channel, 58 Keys, except I can tell you, what can I tell you? What can't I tell you? Got to be careful here. I am not uninvolved with an organisation, a media organisation in the UK, which is considering adding a podcast and a YouTube channel section to its awards. And I am trying very hard to make sure that their categories happen to fit exactly what I do on mine, just to give me a fighting chance next year or the year after, whenever it comes in. And I can't believe I just admitted that. I hope nobody else hears it. All right, I'm feeling guilty. Stop it. Okay.
So you're gonna win a Golden Globe, is what you're telling me.
Well, that's what I was building to. It isn't the Golden Globes, but I was amused to see this week that the Golden Globes are adding a podcast award, because the real reason for not saying the name of the organisation here, I often talk about the Writers Guild. I can tell you it isn't the Writers Guild. Not telling you the name of the organisation is because I think they're feeling pressure to do this, which the Golden Globes look to me like they are as well. It's not so much about, it's never about rewarding something. It's about getting noticed. And the Globes want to attract a new audience. New audience likes podcasts. That's why the Golden Globe is going for it. But they are adding a Best Podcast of the Year. I presume that's for next year. I suddenly realised I don't know when this one begins. Can we qualify? Are we eligible?
Well, what's funny is it's already nominees have been announced. Okay. And it's basically just Apple's top podcast. Once again, it's nothing I listen to. I don't care. Like, right. It's so very funny. I have never listened to a podcast with dynamic ad insertion.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have never listened to I think Only Murders in the Building was the only podcast I ever listened to that was like Wondery Media, and they had those jingles and stuff in there, like that was like, the trope of this is a professional podcast or whatever, like a super high end podcast. Like even ATP doesn't do that, and that's like probably one of the most popular shows I listen to. And yeah, it's very silly. It's not at all
it's funny.
What I listen to.
As much as I love Only Murders in the Building, the TV show, I haven't even tried the podcast that goes with it. And it's a show about a podcast. I mean, it's not the same podcast, but I should look into that. Okay, because you said that about the nominations, I mean, maybe this is incredibly obvious, but I didn't realise it until 10 years or so ago when I got involved organising awards. I assumed that big awards companies or whatever look for things to judge and then judge them. And it said, no, you have to apply for them. You put forward your podcast, you put forward your show, whatever it is for it, and then you get considered for it. So there are weird things, like I've been involved in award ceremonies where I think there was actually one. Just look, it's only the three of us here, isn't it? There was an award where slow horses really, really should have been in the category. And for whatever reason, Apple wasn't putting it in. So I went to some lengths to get to Seesaw Productions and The Right and all this stuff so that they would just please enter this, because it really deserved the attention. I was only actually thinking of the show then. I wasn't thinking about the profile of the Guild Awards, but we did it. It got in and then it didn't win. So I felt a bit awkward about that, but that's the way it kind of works. Now I've missed the Golden Globes nomination. I'll just have to try again next year. There's always another award ceremony, isn't there?
It's just like the number one technology show is called Acquired.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't even, it's about people buying, it's people buying companies.
Listen to Acquired?
Why would I? Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and then the number two podcast is The Last Invention, and it's a podcast about AI. And I'm looking at these. So Twit is number 6. At least I've heard of Twit. I don't know. They're popular, but see, this is we can move on because we have so much to talk about. A bunch of small topics today. It's very important lesson to learn that popularity does not denote quality.
Oh, sure.
And
I mean, there's a base,
like,
isn't there? But yeah.
Yeah, like the Transformers franchise is one of the biggest box office hits, and they are terrible movies. They're awful movies. I enjoy them. I love getting a bucket of popcorn. I love watching Michael Bay put his lens flares and explosions on screen. It is fantastic entertainment. They are terrible movies, just to be clear. So, yeah, don't take charts too seriously.
Unless you're in them, in which case, have a good time. Slap you on the back. Not to reveal that I listened to Acquired and that it's actually on my list to mention to you in the AppleInsider Plus section, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading an interview with Eddie Q of Apple saying he'd stopped his car somewhere to listen to the end of an Acquired episode, and I can understand that. This episode is brought to you by Nordstella. Nordstella is from the makers of NordVPN, and it's made to help whole businesses of any size. It's an entire threat exposure management platform, which means it detects cyber threats against your company and it helps you take control before those threats escalate. Nordstella monitors the dark web, searching for targeted attacks against your firm, your brand, or your executives. And for those executives, for C-level managers, it provides faster detection and prioritization. It offers real-time visibility of risks, and it also strengthens a firm's compliance posture. Then for your security teams, Nordstella can provide contextualized insights. It can track adversaries and provide malware logs. And then for your whole company plus your customers, using Nordstella means safeguarding against phishing, identity abuse, or account takeovers. Nordstella is about proactive protection. Don't wait until your company's data is already for sale on the dark web. Protect your business today with Nordstella. Nordstella has flexible plans that scale with your business size, and right now you can unlock a 20% discount on Nordstella with the coupon code BlackFriday20. Go to nordstella.com/AppleInsider. That's nordstella.com/AppleInsider and use that coupon code BlackFriday20. One word with 20 as 20. Offer is valid until December 10, 2025. And thanks to Nordstella for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Udacity. If you haven't often heard Wes and I discussing AI hype versus AI reality. Well, you've certainly heard everyone else saying it. You've heard it ad nauseum. But with the online learning platform Udacity, there's no talking about theory or the possible futures of AI. There is only specifics about what you can do now, what skills you can learn right now that will help you. True experts teaching you actual skills. And if there's one thing that particularly singles out Udacity, is that you are never just passively left sitting there nodding away at a video. Instead, Udacity has you doing practical exercises. It has you working on real projects that prepare you for the work you need to do. For some reason, and I really don't know why, I just never learn well when I've got a list of facts to read and memorize. I always need to learn by doing. That is constantly my goal in learning, and 90% of Udacity graduates say they achieve their enrollment goals. In my case, actually, I'm following Udacity's digital marketing course. So even beyond AI, Udacity gets you the skills you need to do better in your own business to get you better jobs and better salaries. For instance, Udacity has just launched a master's degree in AI, a true AI master's degree for under $5,000. It is a fraction of the cost of traditional degree programs and comes with so much more flexibility. The tech field is always evolving, and you should be too. You can try Udacity risk-free for 7 days. Head to udacity.com/AppleInsider and use the code AppleInsider for 40% off your order. Once again, that's udacity.com/AppleInsider for 40% off. And do make sure you use my promo code AppleInsider so they know I sent you. And thank you to Udacity for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. But speaking of Eddie Q, speaking of things that he does with Apple, and I've forgotten his title, but he's basically in charge of sports and things, this is relevant this time because I was genuinely for once interested in soccer this week, because there's something I get mixed up between, hang on, is MLS Major League Soccer or is it a disease you catch in old age? It's one or the other. Serious question.
Both?
Okay, all right. I think it was to do with soccer then, the fact that Apple made this big deal, but it's ending, and until it ends, they're dropping the subscription, the extra subscription for it. I mean, you're more of a sports guy than I am, and you're in America, so you understand American sports. What is going on with Apple and Major League something?
Apple and MLS seemingly have decided to part ways. And it also seems to be a both sides decision. This isn't MLS is unhappy. This isn't Apple TV is unhappy. It's just, I think they've both decided that it's not for them. I think MLS and their owners are looking to either make a little bit more money or get a little bit more notoriety with some big hitters in the space. Apple wants more control, and I think they've sampled about as maximum amount of control as they can have over MLS, and it's still not quite enough. I think they're going to get what they want out of F1, for example, as far as control goes. So they're actually going to end their deal early in 2029. And from now until that deal ends, so 26, 27, and 28, the MLS games and the entire seasons are going to be free. I guess Apple is just going to subsidize that, or at the very least 2026. But I think it's just going to be until they're done. Because Apple is ready to part ways with MLS, which is frustrating because I feel like Apple's need for control is getting in the way of them being a good sports producer. Either get into this space or don't, because if you do this wishy-washy stuff, you're going to get ignored by other contractors. And I don't think Apple is going to become just the F1 company, and that's further evidenced by our next bit of news. But they want access to other things. I mean, Eddie Q would love nothing more than to fix NFL broadcasting, right? And I don't think Apple's going to pick up wrestling, maybe golf. I don't know. I don't know what their goal is anymore, because MLS was about as clear cut as you could get of a service. They got their logos on the jerseys. They got to advertise and run this whole thing. But maybe as popular as soccer is, they realized that the US base didn't care enough to spend that $30, $50 a year, and they weren't making their money back. And now, if I had to guess, maybe they're looking at acquiring a team in European soccer.
I tell you, I can't believe I have so many thoughts about sport. The positive one with a question. Even though in my entire life I've been to one half of one football match and I got out of there as soon as the job was done, I have never watched a complete match on television. I've only ever watched it when I was with my mother and she was just not turning the channel over to something better. It seemed to me that Apple was doing this really well with covering every game. When you have some blackout system, that means everywhere, I don't understand it, but you got everything through Apple, and they were doing all of these extras, these supporting things. I thought if you were into this, Apple was doing it really well. Do you think they're just going to slide that back and now and just pump out whatever game they're required to?
Well, no, I think they're going to continue as is. It's just, and there's some contractual obligations too, but it's just, I think that they really wanted to own a sport and they got their wish and discovered that MLS is not NFL. It is not even an MLB. The fact that they're holding on to Major League Baseball's just a doubleheader. All Apple gets from MLB is the doubleheaders on Friday nights. And that is enough for them to maintain their contract with MLB. But they aren't bothering with MLS, which just goes to show, again, as popular as soccer is, and as much as it's growing in the United States, it is becoming increasingly popular amongst youngsters. The thing is, and that's why I think it's a mistake for Apple to just give up. But it must be amicable, because I think MLS is ready to move on as well. But it's a big miss for them, because as MLS grows, as the attention in the United States on it grows, I think they want more of it. But F1, that is a global sport. And now Apple gets to stream all of it. And I think they want something a little bit more global, a little bit more impactful. And maybe that's where they're going to be. I mean, do you think Apple could become a industry partner for the Olympics? Maybe I think that's the kind of stuff they're aiming for. They got a sample of the tepid favor that people have for MLS in the United States, that are willing to pay a little bit of money or whatever, but it wasn't enough. So I think Apple, being a global brand, they're more interested in global sports, and I don't know, maybe we'll see more of that, or again, maybe they just settle on F1 and just stop muddling in the space.
But F1 wasn't a global sport. It was everywhere except America, I believe, not until the film came out, but there was the Netflix series as well. It's been only in the last few years that it's built up for it, so that could happen with other sports.
We always had IndyCar.
Oh, true. I'm not with you on the worldwide rights thing, because I see the benefit of that in drama. Coda, for example, is famously the first ever best film Oscar for a streamer, and Apple got that, and they own that, and it's true that it's theirs, but they didn't make Coda, and they do not have the worldwide rights for it. And it's fascinating how much they tried, and seem to have got away with everybody thinking they made it anyway. So they get the glory.
Well, see, I misspoke though, because F1, they only have the rights to stream it in the US. The global,
I didn't realize that. Oh, right.
Yeah, that's right. The global streamer is still that other thing. So
ESPN
Sky or
something? Oh, Sky.
Yeah.
I still think of Sky as a British company, but I think it's joint US,
Australian.
UK, Australian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit that button. But so the Sky thing is still happening internationally, but F1 is an international brand. So it's getting convoluted. But I think that's what I'm getting at, is F1 being international, even though Apple only gets the US streaming rights, it makes it a bigger property, and but also allows Apple to exist globally, if that makes sense, in this space. So again, maybe that's what they're looking for in terms of sports. I don't know. After seeing them let go of MLS seemingly without any fight, it makes me think that their strategy is shifting yet again, and I honestly wonder if they even care about sports at this point, because I mean, there's an entire tab in Apple TV that you can't remove called MLS.
Well,
Right.
there's also sports in the Apple News Plus app, and I have never touched it once.
Sports is fine, but
Yeah,
having it labeled MLS is silly. And now
see,
that's
right.
going away.
Yes.
Is it going to be the F1 tab? I would prefer it be a sports tab, but if I were an Apple executive right now and I was making these decisions, I would stop trying to be the owner and try and be a better distributor, like with F1. Just get in there and make the technology good. Make Apple TV the destination for all sports. Make it so you can open the Apple TV app, click on the sports tab, click on a game, and you're watching it, period. That's it. You're done. That would be my goal as Apple TV. And I know that's an impossible goal, but it's slightly less impossible than owning the NFL. So.
Right. Weirdly, I'm going to pick up several different words you said at different times there and do something with them. F1 distribution. This reminds me, once the F1 movie was such a success for Apple, the reports came in that Apple wanted to take more control over it. This is a very Apple thing, like you've said. Previously, the film was distributed by Warner Brothers, and now Apple wants to do it and any other films coming, or that's what we've heard. This week, I heard very excited news that there's going to be an F1 sequel, that Apple's in active talks. And the more you look into it, the less likely that is. One of the problems is that deal with Warner Brothers. That will not have been a one-picture deal. So Apple would have to get out of that to distribute F1 2, whatever it's called. There's once you have a hit, everyone involved that you want back will demand more money, so there's some negotiations going on. And the more you look into this, the director is saying that there are active talks, but he only meant within his own company. That him and the fellow producers, and there are many producers, would really like to do it. And separately, Tim Cook has said he would really like to see it. But we are so far away from it happening. And just, you don't believe it till the cameras
one is fine.
Roll. Yeah, I mean, even this week, I met somebody, and the first thing I wanted to say to me was, have you seen F1? Isn't it great? And I was surprised that was, before hello, he went in with that, but he was quite persuasive, and you liked it. So when it gets streaming on, I believe, December the 12th, I think, then I might give it a look in my living room. But
it's a fun movie.
It won't be the same, not in the cinema or not on Apple Vision Pro. But listen, while we're talking international, there's an obvious thing here to say. There's a Japanese news story that came out. I mean, we just had the iPhone Pocket, which was designed with the Japanese fashion house, but now there's some Apple iOS news for Japan, which, yet again, I know you know more about it than I do.
So all this is a regulatory measure. Like the EU's DMA, Japan's pushing for more interoperability. And so Apple's paving the way for that. In iOS 16.2, you will be able to reassign the side button, the power button, to summon other virtual assistants. So instead of pressing and holding and getting the rainbow, and speaking to Apple's assistant, you would be able to say, let me speak to Google Assistant, Alexa, ChatGPT even, or what have you. From my understanding, this is going to be a very limited implementation because those components don't have access to Apple's operating system. So when Apple's updated LLM-backed Siri launches in this spring, you would not be able to have Google Assistant access app intents using the side button, unless Apple builds it that way, but I very seriously doubt that. What this is actually going to end up being is just a launcher. It's going to be a very simple, because Japan's argument, and I think this is Apple playing word games, which legally fair, is it is unfair for Apple to exclusively allow users to launch only their smart assistant from the side button. So Apple's just going to be like, okay, install the Google Assistant app. It'll pop up as an alternative side button action in settings. And then you'll be able to perform whatever actions the Google Assistant app would normally let you do. I don't think it's going to get any other privileges than that.
Right. I can't say I'm absurdly pro Siri, given that I'm also quite anti-Siri. I just mentioned this guy was talking about F1. Later on in the same conversation, we couldn't remember a fact, and he got out his iPhone and asked Iris for the answer, and I'm watching in amazement as Siri gives him the right answer. And there's no problem. So it must be another app. It can't be Siri. I can't wait for Siri to be fixed and come back because it feels.
I really enjoy it. I still use it every day. Control my home, music, sometimes a query, measurements, stuff like that. The thing that will always frustrate me and that I will never get over, that will just invalidate whatever conversation I'm having, is the moment someone says, ChatGPT says, because the same rule applied to and still applies to Google says, because in either respect, I'm no longer having a conversation with you. I'm having a conversation with Google, and that's not what I'm interested in. So, whether or not it is correct, and 8 times out of 10 it's incorrect, no, I would like to know what you think, not what your search engine of choice thinks. Thank you. It is such a turnoff in any conversation. I don't care that you're able to pick up a device and type in a search bar. I don't care that you know how to use a chat bot. That's useless information to me. It doesn't tell me anything.
Well, right.
Well, it tells me something.
Sure, but yeah, I get that. Just, I can give you some useless information, which is this. There is actually a phrase in my household called or don't, because the number of times I will ask Siri to turn on this light and nothing happens. I've ended up saying, turn on the light, wait, or don't, in your own time. It's fine. I hear a little giggle from my wife every now and again when she hears that, because I'm more pro smart home than she is, and she's more frustrated by the problems we're having. But now we're getting into
Natalie.
Detail.
Yeah, Natalie has a love-hate relationship. She certainly. So first of all, in order to make sure she's treated well in the robot apocalypse, that she says thank you every time she.
Yes, quite right too. So do I.
Yeah, so she says, turn on the lights, please, and then says thank you when the lights come on, which is just adorable every time.
Right.
But also, when it doesn't work, she's ready to rip it out of the wall and throw it out of the window. So it is a very bipolar interaction, but also very enjoyable.
I seem to be more with her than I am with you, but okay. I tell you, because we could go down many, many rabbit holes here, and there's lots of little bits going on this week. Only one of which, actually, I'm a little sad about, which is, I got to write about this a lot, what might be the end of the Mac Pro forever. Might be. I mean, if we're lucky, it'll be a couple of years, maybe 3, before we see another version. But even that doesn't look very likely, because, of course, these days you put the Mac Studio up against the Mac Pro and the cheaper one wins. Actually, you put the Mac Mini up against the Mac Pro and often enough it wins. I read a piece from AppleInsider celebrating or usually eulogizing, that's the phrase, because I bought one of the original Mac Pros back in 2006. It was affordable then compared to now. It was a stretch at the time, but compared to what you pay now, it was achievable, and I wanted a powerful Mac that would last me for years and years. And what was that, 2006? So 19 years later, I'm still using it, although admittedly, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, he said admittedly, I'm using it as a seat in my living room when we have too many guests in. It's very good for that.
It's really bad because the A18 Pro and the iPhone 17 Pro outperforms the Mac Pro in single core. Like, it's that old at this point, an M2 Ultra. It's a great chip, but it is well beyond surpassed in all of Apple's modern chipsets in almost every significant way, especially in NPU performance, dealing with AI. So the Mac Pro, its fault is in its design. It was built for the Intel era, and plugging in 1 million external cards that would accelerate certain processes.
Yeah.
Apple put the entire Afterburner card inside of the M1 Pro and then followed by the M2. That there's no longer a need for the Afterburner card. So then all that's really left is the GPUs, and Apple is releasing Ultras with, hundreds of cores or whatever, right? And they can just keep packing more and more. They can put GPUs in parallel. They can do all these interesting things with these system on a chip processes. No expansion required. I'm sure people would like expansion. I'm sure Apple may even be working on a Mac with expansion slots that works with Apple Silicon. It won't be this Mac Pro. Maybe they could make a smaller Mac Pro. I think Apple would be remiss to not release a miniaturized version of this tower at some point, because this is a gigantic tower. It weighs 50 pounds. It is incredibly big.
Yeah.
I might be exaggerating, but it is a very big tower if you've ever seen it in real life. Bigger than those build your own PC kits people do these days by far. So sure, rest in peace, Mac Pro. The trash can sealed its fate. This was the apology letter to pros in 2018. Mm-hmm. Then it was only made and only released because Apple didn't want to lose their pros in the interim years to Apple Silicon, knowing full well that Apple Silicon was going to kill this device. And then they released Apple Silicon, and then they're like, now what? And that's where we are. And that's where we are now. Once again, it's not the thermal corner they've worked themselves into, but it's definitely a useless machine as far as Apple Silicon goes.
That's harsh,
but
fair.
It's sad.
Mm. Oh, I should say, the reason this comes up now is that there was a report from Bloomberg, chiefly that there won't be there have been rumours of a new Mac Pro before the end of this year, and the report was saying, well, no, and not next year either, and probably not the year after. But what got me is it was also a line in there saying that, kind of off the record thing, the feeling within Apple is that the staff aren't that interested anymore. They're kind of focused on their Mac Studio. And I love the Mac Studio. I have one on my desk. I'm gesticulating at it right now. Great machine. But it feels like the Mac Pro came in with this bang, and now it's kind of just quietly left the room without being noticed. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames, which makes digital photo frames like the one in my living room right now. I appreciate you can't see that. But just so you know, fill you in here, at this moment, it is showing me the absolute best photo. I'm so proud of this one that I took earlier this year in Paris, except no, tell a lie. It's showing a photo of my family from the Commonwealth Games show rehearsals a couple of years ago. And now you get the idea. It's one frame. It's a really nice frame, but it shows any number of your photos, rotating between them either automatically at a rate you decide, or when you just gently swipe across the top of the frame. These photos look great. They are also in my living room instead of being buried somewhere on my iPhone. Yeah, but I keep saying it's about my photos. I'm a bit full of my photos. They look so good, but the truth is, they can be anyone's photos. Anyone can get the Aura app and I can give them access. And then either of us, any of us, can send any photos we like to the frame. So I could give an Aura frame to my sister, for example, and send photos to it in her house when I'm away on holiday, which does seem a bit mean, actually, but you can do it. Or go the other way, opposite of mean. You could buy an Aura frame for a relative or a friend and hand it over to them gift wrapped, actually still shrink wrapped, still in the box, never used, but when they switch it on, they immediately get a set of photographs you have chosen to be there for you. I think that is so clever. And I've also spent far too long now staring at my own photos on my shelf. There's the Eiffel Tower. Look at that. And you can do the same with your photos right now. For a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named number 1 by Wirecutter, by using the promo code AppleInsider at checkout. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com, promo code AppleInsider. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is the best of the year, so order now before it ends, and support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply, and thank you to Aura Frames both for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast and for frankly brightening up my living room. This episode is brought to you by Ruler, R-U-L-A, Ruler. We took a lot on Apple Insider about productivity and getting work done, about learning new skills and pushing away at the limits of the hardware we buy, but we don't often enough think about how that kind of constant work and constant pressure affects our mental health. Your work is important, but so is your health, and that absolutely includes your mental health. I've had therapy and actually found it rather calming, found that it helped me identify what things that were affecting me and gave me tools then to cope better with them. But when I got that, it was quite costly. And it also meant that I would lose at least half a day's work in order to drive to my therapist's office and then get the 50-minute session. So for all of the benefits, no question of benefits to me of therapy, the time it took each week actually added more pressure to me. Whereas Rula is an online healthcare service. So there's no travel time, there's no waiting. There is only fitting the therapy you need around the time you have. Plus, I think now I had a choice of 2 therapists. Rula works with over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists across the USA. Rula costs from $15 per session, so much better than I ever paid. And also, because Rula is in-network covered care for most major insurance plans, the price to you can be that, or it can even be nothing. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/AppleInsider to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you. Go to rula.com/AppleInsider and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. And thank you to Rula for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
So these next couple we'll do in a Q&A fashion because we have some more things to get to, but there's not much to say here.
Mm-hmm. I was going to go with iPhones because that's another report from Bloomberg as well. But we seem to have heard this one a lot, haven't we? About the schedule. The release schedule is changing. That's what this new report is, isn't it?
Yeah. So just wanted to point out this absurdity. I think we might have even talked about it last week, but it's just been further discussed since then. So iPhone Air 2 is not coming in 2026, and it never was. And a Bloomberg report pretty much confirms that the iPhone Air not being called iPhone 17 Air pretty much told this story the moment it released. It was never going to be an annual phone. We're still expecting a foldable probably in 2026. I'm still very skeptical, but at the very least, there will be an updated iPhone Air 2 in 2027 with the possibility of a camera. Bloomberg denies the camera, saying that's odd and that would require a redesign, and that goes against the entire idea of the phone. But at the very least, it could get vapor chamber cooling and longer battery life thanks to a new processor. So just wanted to point out yet again, iPhone Air is not an annual update. We'll probably get an iPhone Fold that is above the iPhone Air, and then the iPhone Air 2 will be an upgrade to that base model. And I think we're going to flip-flop every year on those 2 models if the Fold ever comes.
Oh, that would fit. I'm thinking every year, I mean, I didn't upgrade this year. An orange iPhone Max, please. But so I don't do it every year like you do because you're in the iPhone upgrade program. I don't have a pattern to when I do it. It's just, can I afford it? Is it interesting enough to change? And that varies from year to year. Every time I buy an iPhone, though, every time September comes around, actually, whether I buy it or not, the consideration is which one do I want? Which one would be best for me? And actually, especially this year, when we're talking about 2025, the base model is so good compared to the Pros that I'm almost glad I didn't have to go through the detail. I came within a pixel of buying the Air just out of curiosity, and then I saw one and wasn't so keen. But I go through, not self-flagellation, but I really ponder the differences. And so far, I've always come out on the Pro side, and eventually I've realized I'm happy with that. But now they're going to make it worse by having 2 of these releases, Pros first, and then the regulars the rest. So twice a year, I'm going to be thinking, have I bought the right phone?
Yeah, that's the other side of this is iPhone's release timing could change significantly. It's still not happening yet, so we'll have to wait all the way till the end of 2026 to see if this rumor actually happens. And there's so much time for this to change 6 different ways. But theoretically, in September 2026, we're only going to hear about iPhone Pro and possibly iPhone Fold and nothing else. But if the iPhone Fold doesn't happen, which is still my bet, I don't think Apple's going to do this split schedule because they want 3 phones for each release. So it'd be iPhone Pro, Pro Max, Fold. And then spring 27, we would get iPhone base model, iPhone E and something else plus maybe. Again, I don't know. But that's where we would end up. But I don't know. I don't think we're going to do it, because then a few months later we would get iPhone anniversary 20th edition model and iPhone Air 2. It seems like a little bit too much. And Samsung does do this, so it's not like it's impossible, but it really changes the dynamic, and it changes the shopping season. And the origination of this rumor is Apple wants to extend its sales to basically encapsulate the entire year.
Yeah.
But the people who are going to buy iPhones are going to buy iPhones whenever they buy them. This might give us a little boost in the spring, but I don't think it's going to change how much money they make. It's just going to shuffle when that money shows up.
Well, cash flow is important. I mean, Apple strapped for money. Good to know there's some regular income coming. Tommy, I mentioned then that you're on the iPhone upgrade program, and it suddenly occurs to me, I don't know how the program works. You have a Pro Max, I think, at the moment, don't you?
Yes. So it's basically like any finance thing. It's just Apple has it worked out perfectly to run out of charge when you get to the next release. So if you started the iPhone upgrade program in April, you wouldn't be ready for an upgrade until April. Right. But most people in the iPhone upgrade program theoretically would do it on release day of iPhone, so that by the time you get to September of the next year, you've paid off 50% of your phone and you are now ready to do the iPhone upgrade program for the next year. You can always pay it off early, and that would be an immediate charge. So if you still owe $200 on your to get to 50% of your value, then you pay $200 and then sign up for the next iPhone upgrade program. You're actually not carried over to a new program. You're reapplying for the program every year. Right. You're basically canceling one program and starting a new one. It doesn't affect your credit or anything. It is treated as one thing, but that's just how it works. You're going in and saying, I'm buying this iPhone, give me the new iPhone. Here, it does the application again. You get approved, and then they say return your old one. And once you return your old phone, the previous plan is canceled. And a lot of the times you'll see both plans active for those couple of weeks in the interim. So there's no requirement for when and how any of this works. It is just a very basic financing plan.
So you, as a Pro Max user now, should you decide that actually next time you wanted the iPhone Air, you could just do that. There wouldn't be...
Yeah.
Okay. But then what?
You can buy whatever you want.
What happens then if they do split these things apart and you are on a contract starting in September's and you then decide the April release is the one for you?
Then you're gonna pay off a quarter of your phone's value and get the next phone early if you want it.
So it's doable. It's just quite expensive. So the odds are people will stick with something. I mean, I'm sure Apple's calculated this. It reminds me of such a very long time ago in Britain. There used to be the car number plate system. I've forgotten how it works. Something like the last letter kept changing every year, so you always knew which was the new one. And every time that thing changed in April or financial year, whatever it was, there'd be this rush of car sales, and they wanted that rush again, so they made it change twice a year. And now, hand on heart, I look at a number plate, not one thin clue what year it came from. I think they lost more than they gained from it, and maybe Apple's smarter with this.
One little note, a rumor says the Apple Watch won't be getting redesigned till 2028. Sure. Makes sense. We already got a minor change with the display size, and so it's tick tock talk. That's 3 years.
Okay.
2028 is 2 talks away, so sure, why not? I have the series, the Ultra 3 right now. I don't think there's going to be an Ultra 4 next year. I think that'll be 2027, which means Ultra 5 might not be till 2029. So that I honestly might upgrade. I'm happy to be on the Ultra 3 because now I'm kind of forced into an every other year upgrade cycle unless the Series 12 is something incredible, which I doubt it will be. We've seen what happens with Apple Watch updates every year now. It's mostly focused on battery and display technology at this point, so I'm not too concerned. I want Apple to make me need these things less, and that's fine with me.
Okay, I was going to check. I mean, hair splitting, nitpicking. This story about that there won't be a redesign, it means there'll still be some change. There will be a series
Yes.
12 and 13. It's just a visible redesign.
Apple's,
won't come.
yeah, they're not going to just not release an Apple Watch for 2 years. That'd be silly.
Yeah.
But no, maybe we could see a Series 11 colorway change, right? Maybe they could pull an Ultra 2 and say, and now it comes in these shiny colors and do nothing to it, which given the Apple Watch, the wearables, we don't know what Apple Watch is, but the wearables section has been dropping over time, and that's dominated primarily by AirPods and Apple Watch, and we know AirPods is fine. So my assumption is Apple's going to look for a new way to juice margins on Apple Watch, and this could be one of the ways. Maybe we just stick with a series for 2 years, and so next year it would be the Series 11 again with some new colorways, and then the Series 12 come in 27, and then the Series 13 redesign. Who knows? I'm not Apple. Apple Watch, I think, has reached it. Unlike peak iPhone being a myth, peak Apple Watch is certainly a thing, and I think it happened 2 years ago. I think Series 10 was probably the as peak as you're going to get Apple Watch without a full redesign. So Apple's going to ride this current design as long as they can, and it looks like 2028, which is fine. We'll see what the next one looks like.
I can tell you my accountant was very happy at this story. Me, less so. But then we're making kind of an assumption there that Apple will still exist in 2028 because this week, totally forgotten his or her name, an industrial designer left Apple for some AI startup. I don't even listen past the word AI anymore. But that's it. One person's gone. It's all over. Apple is doomed. I think that's a fair summary. In fact, what's the point of even carrying on this podcast unless you know different?
So, first of all, this individual's name is impossible. If there's probably even some sort of ethnicity attached to the pronunciation, so I can't even give it an attempt. But Chowdhury, I guess, is the widest way I can say that last name. Chowdhury. But anyway, this person has left Apple to join an unknown AI company. That's the story, and it's always fun because who cares? I actually, every time I write one of these, I point out how silly these stories are. Specifically, I said, as always, it's important to note these reports lack any details, how important the individual is going to be for projects, whether the exit was amicable, or why the anonymous reporters are leaking the details in the first place. However, this report goes out of its way to make the departure appear monumental and impactful to Apple. So, though it does note this doesn't have anything to do with the iPhone Air's performance in the market or the iPhone Air 2's launch in 2027. So, it's a nothing burger. And I post the story and then I comment on it on Blue Sky saying, basically, I don't really understand why these reports have to be so negative. There's really nothing to say here other than a guy left. We don't know why he left and what damage this actually does for Apple. And Mark Gurman actually replied to me and says, I guess his question could be interpreted two ways. And I didn't really try to interpret it too much because I did respond amicably. I'm not trying to fight the guy. I don't think he's a bad reporter. I just find these reports amusing. He says, so don't cover it, ? He could have meant for him not to cover it, or he could have meant for me not to cover it. I don't know. But I said, no, that's not my point. It's an interesting conversation to have as someone who covers Apple. I just disagree with the bleak tone and angle. And losing talent is never good. It's just hard to gauge how much damage this is actually doing. So, and he never responded. So,
right.
And that's the thing. Like, Gurman's fine. Like, I pick on Gurman here because he's an easy target. He does say some very odd things, and he does paint Apple with a very negative picture because it earns them more money when he does that. Or at least it earns him more money. I don't know. It moves the stock more, let's say. Anyway, whenever there's negative news about Apple, it moves the stock more. That's the most true thing I can say there. But yeah, this person left. Who was he? He narrated the iPhone Air design video during the event.
Oh, right. So he Johnny Ived the video. That's what we're talking about. Did he say magical? No, like that.
Well, maybe, and it was a fun video, and I enjoyed it. And it is known that you don't really get to do these videos unless you're really well known in Apple. He's only been at Apple for 6 years, which is actually means he arrived after Johnny Ive left. So he's not one of Johnny Ive's team. He apparently is very talented, did well in design, helped design the iPhone Air, apparently, quote unquote, had a critical role in designing the iPhone Air. But none of this matters because Apple is not one person. It never has been. And Gurman's, 13 reports of engineers leaving either AI teams or design teams in the last year have all led me to the same conclusion of, okay, who did they hire? Who did they replace him with? Did they train someone to replace him? Like, we are getting less than half of the story. It's a quarter of the story, right? It's someone leaving, but did someone come in? Did someone get trained? Was this an amicable departure? Did they leave because they hated Apple? Or was this simply because they're now talented and powerful in their space and want to make more money, which is usually the best reason. And it makes sense to. Mike Worthley, our editor, he shared a little data detail with me that we'll use on our next piece, but I'll just say it here. The average stay at a company in big tech, Meta 3 years, Amazon 3 years, Google 4 years, Apple 4.5 years, Microsoft 4.5 years. So this person, relatively new, stayed longer than the average anyway, and departed for an AI company where he's most likely going to be executive level staff running a team, making very good money because AI is very lucrative right now, doing something new and different, whereas Apple is very much not the new and different company. So it's just, no matter what angle you take on the story, it is not this negative thing that Gurman paints it out to be, which is what, again, report on the departure, fine. These reports on departures started a year ago, and they've been coming, I guess, as he gets the information, but they're sparse. Again, we're talking about maybe 13 to 15 people total that he's reported on departures, significant quote unquote departures. And he's writing in this way that is almost giddy and excited and celebrating, but in the most perverse way of, ooh, what's Apple going to do now? They lost this guy. It's so bad for them. They're trying so hard in this space and they just lost a key member of the team. Why are you writing it that way when you don't know, or at least you're not saying the other half of the story, which is that they're probably fine they probably threw a party when he left and said, congratulations on your new role. Like, we don't know. We have no idea. But the way that Gurman writes it is they're all hand-wringing and sitting silently, staring at their shoes, wondering what they're going to do and how they're going to save the iPhone Air. It's just silly to me. Why? Anyway, so I will always take these reports and write about them in this way because we just don't know. And I'm sorry, Gurman, you are an excellent source for insider information. I'm glad that we get to cover your reports, but there's no need to be so dreary and negative about everything because that's not how any of this works.
That's his niche. The thing is, all I've got to add to this is I can't help smiling whenever someone is described as having a critical role in something like the iPhone Air, because I just think, were they the one who was paid to go around and say, well, this is rubbish? Well, that's all they did. That was one person that, embarrassing, I can't pronounce the name of, and I also forgot it, and we don't know who it is, and good luck to them wherever they are. There is one Apple employee that it's possible you may have heard of. Steve Jobs, do you know the name that's come up before at all in Apple history? Has it?
A little bit, maybe.
Tiny bit. Well, just very quickly, because the Steve Jobs archive has just released actually quite interesting video interview with Steve Jobs. I don't know why it wasn't more well-known before, but they claim it's never been released. It looks like it was shot for broadcast, but I can't find any other trace of it. Talking about Pixar, particularly Toy Story. So Steve Jobs Archive has released it for the 40th anniversary coming up of the original Toy Story. And this was Steve Jobs interviewed 1 year after the release, talking about the success and Pixar. And really interestingly, it was just a couple of weeks before he went back to Apple. The guy is weirdly reflective, almost like there's a lot on his mind at the time, and it's terribly interesting about it. There's a link in the show notes. You can take 27 minutes, I think it is, to enjoy that.
It's a good interview, and it's not until 2006 that he lets go of Pixar and sells it to Disney. So there's quite a lot of time there. And they're in the middle of producing A Bug's Life, which he calls Project Bug, which I really liked. If there was one takeaway from this entire interview, it's we already knew how charismatic Steve Jobs is and how well-spoken he was. It was just a good interview. And the reason why the show art is what it is, I'm sorry, but there was a moment he mentioned that each frame of Toy Story took, 3 hours to render. 3 hours. And he says, yes, computers, since Toy Story was developed and produced, have improved, allowing us to render those frames faster, but we're not doing that. We're actually going to make the frames and stuff more detailed, so we're going to maintain the 3 hour frame per frame rendering that we had with Toy Story with Project Bug. And I just found that very interesting, because fast forward to 2019 or so, and there's a video game that I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again because it's on my mind. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a game that it's a Disney Square Enix crossover. There's Final Fantasy characters in Disney World. So it's a lot. There's a lot going on there. But the key element here is it's a very beautifully rendered 3D video game where you play these characters and move about these worlds. Well, one world you visit in Kingdom Hearts 3 is Toy Story. And because of the way the game works and magic or whatever, you get to be a toy in that world and fight monsters alongside the other toys, Woody and Buzz Lightyear. Sadly, Tom Hanks was not available, but his brother reprised Woody's voice, which is very fun. In any case, we get to play in real time, rendered by a PlayStation console sitting in my living room. Not one frame every 3 hours, but one frame every second, right? Or not even that, 60 frames per second, right? We're getting to the point now where you can move around in Andy's room in real time, fighting creatures with all these particle effects and this advanced technology and lighting and detail that was never, ever there. The worlds that you're playing in, the figures, the Woody, right? Like his hat, the texture on the leather, the stitching is rendered in more detail live on my PlayStation, 60 frames per second, than back when they were rendering the movie itself. And you go back and watch that original movie, and it is empty and bleak compared to what is able to render on my PlayStation. So it's crazy to see the juxtaposition of those two things. And I just happen to be playing through the game again right now when this interview came out. So I had to point out the difference because it is just fascinating.
I didn't appreciate that. I heard the 3 hours thing, didn't think about it. I mentioned this at the top, so I need to just say it now, but let's phrase it this way. If I happen to have a question about the Hydrate Spark Pro 2 smart water bottle for you, how should I send it to you? How should people ask you questions?
Well, obviously you can read my review and leave comments in our forums. There's a link to the reviews in the show. There's not much to say. It's a water bottle, right? It's a good water bottle. It reminds you of stuff. Go read the review. I enjoyed it. I want to say real quick, there's this is a little meta. Products that we review sometimes are so on their nose that it's hard to discuss them in length. How do you talk about a water bottle at length, right? You drink water from it. So I still was able to write plenty about it, but I am currently writing about smart shades. The pieces of cloth that cover your window, right?
Okay, right.
And it is such a challenge to the craft of how do you talk without boring people, but being interesting, actually saying something unique for 1,000 words or so shades that cover your window. It is such a fun challenge of the job.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be with you because I had to write about the iPhone Pocket. Okay, it's a piece of wool. All right, second sentence.
It's inspired by cloths.
Okay, there you go. I could have had a third sentence right there. But, okay.
Yes, so reach out to me on Blue Sky, hilly.tech, Wes at appleinsider.com for my email. I'm still on Mastodon, even though I don't know, it just feels like a place that's increasingly empty for me. I'm glad it's working for some people. It's just, there's a function in Mastodon that lets you remove people from your following list, the people I follow, based on how long it's been since they interacted with it. So I set it to a month. And out of the 300 people I follow, it removed 100 of them.
Okay.
That's like that of 100 people who have been gone for more than a month without posting. So, and of the 200 that remain, they're posting very infrequently. Anyway, so Blue Sky's where it's at. Email. You can always leave a review on Apple's podcast app. We appreciate those. We'll read them here on the show. I want to go over a couple things here. So I got an email from our young listener, Crosby, again. Oh, yeah. This is the one who leaves us the kind reviews on Apple Podcasts, but they have been asking questions about the future of AI and Apple Vision Pro. And this time they asked a question about Apple finally releasing the updated Siri and Siri Intelligence, Apple Intelligence stuff that's coming in the spring. And yeah, I don't think... One second. I'm going to have to reread this.
Pardon.
Yeah, I think Apple is going to release what they promised. I don't know about bonus features so much. I don't think we're going to be worried about Image Playground so much. But I think we're going to see... I mean, I've been describing it in detail for a while now. I think this is going to be a really interesting framework for controlling your phone through voice, kind of achieving that dream of a truly voice-controlled computer end-to-end, where App Intents will understand every menu, every option in every app, and then you can just tell Siri to do that, and it will find it and do it for you. And I think that's going to be a very interesting system for Apple Intelligence, but I think there's going to be a lot more to it, so I think Apple will have some surprises for us. So I'm very excited. We just got 16.2 in the next week. That's going to release publicly, and then 16.3 might be another kind of middle ground bug fix, but 16.4 is expected sometime in April, and that's going to be the big one. So I'm very excited. We're closing in on that update.
Cool. Yes.
And finally...
Sorry, yes, after you.
Yeah.
Finally.
And finally, we have a podcast review from... I think it came in right after last episode, so we didn't get to cover it, so we'll cover it this week. 4 stars, Tim Conway, and I think AR is Arizona, or not, Arizona is AZ. AR is Arkansas. Great podcast. Please lose the politics. This is a really good podcast, keeps you up to date. They need to keep it 100% technology, lose all mention of politics. They've left so many Apple podcasts because of politics. There are plenty of podcasts, if that's what you want, that cover politics. They came here for Apple Info, and I shouldn't be able to tell which side of the political aisle you're on based on a podcast. Yeah, I can. Well, thanks for the review, and thanks for leaving 4 stars in spite of you disagreeing or disliking our political discussions. We rarely have a segment called Controversy Corner, and that's usually where we put all political content. Every now and then things get through because we're human, and if a topic comes up like Joe Rogan's podcast, we're going to say how we feel. We're human beings. We're not robots. We're not here to robotically repeat the news in chronological order. If you want that, as you said, there are plenty of podcasts that do that. We're here to be us. We're here to be humans. And how we feel and how we interact with the world is going to come through in this show. And if you can't vibe with that, then, like you said, there's other podcasts. But hopefully you can stick around because we do keep it, quote unquote, apolitical. But I think that word itself is a misnomer because there's no such thing as being apolitical. We're people with souls and lives that and care about things, and we're going to have feelings, and we're going to have opinions, and we're going to share them. And not doing so would be a disservice to the show, I think. So if you just disagree with us to the point that you can't hear it, then fine. I wish you luck. Do what you got to do. But that's it for podcast reviews this week. Please leave a review in Apple Podcasts. We will read it here, good or bad, don't worry. And we're always happy to hear from you guys. It's a good time. Ask questions, leave topics for Apple Insider Plus. And speaking of which, William?
Oh, yes. Actually, sorry, have you said how people can reach you directly? I mean, reviews are one way, but there's also...
Yeah, Blue Sky, email.
And your email, of course, sorry, because my mind's on the fact that I was about to say, as I always say, that William at AppleInsider.com is the best way to reach me, but actually it's not going to be for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be off email for a little while. Not going to tell you why, because it's more exciting if I don't tell you why, but... let emails stack up a bit more than they have, and I will get back to you again. And in the meantime, I'm always doing more on YouTube for it. But Apple Insider Plus is coming. We need to do a couple of things first. One is, well, actually, you need to subscribe if you aren't already. Apple Insider Plus via Patreon or Apple Insider, excuse me, I keep getting this phrase wrong, Apple Podcast subscriptions. Either way, gets you the same thing coming up in a minute. But first, I should say also, Wes, thank you very much for answering all my questions. I do have a Hydrate Spark thing. I will be emailing you about it, but we might cover that another time. And in the meanwhile, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, Nordstella, Udacity, Aura Frames, and Ruler. Well, I was going to say we'll be back next week, but Wes, you'll be back next week. Without me, won't you? Do you know what's happening next week, or is it going to be a surprise for us?
Well, the next 2 weeks, I believe we're going to have guests. I'm trying to see about Mike next week. So Mike Worthley will be joining me for some fun discussions. And I think in 2 weeks, it'll probably be Tim Chatton of the iPad Pros and Vision Pros podcast. So we'll have some iPads and Vision Pros discussions here along with the news. But given it'll be the middle of December, probably not much to talk about Apple-wise, hopefully. So yes, should be an interesting couple of weeks. I'll be editing the show. I'm handling the show notes and all the art. So reach out and let me know what you think of how I'm handling all of that, of course, and the audio as well. This is fun for me. I haven't done this yet, so it's a fun new challenge for me to take care of that end of the show. So happy to hear any critiques or information from you guys as you listen.
I will tell you, it's just us, isn't it? I'll just tell you that I am actually jealous of you editing the podcasts because I love editing that much. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Yeah. But it's funny you should mention podcasts there, like iPad Pros. I really like iPad Pros. I only tuned in once because you were on it, and now I'm hooked to it. That's what Apple Insider Plus is about. Podcasts we are hooked to, not necessarily technical ones. In fact, let's try to make it as broad a range as possible because our podcasts do range. I mean, you heard about the chart. What a range is that? Let's see what we can do that might be of interest to you. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening to the main show. Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yep. Talk next week.